All right, everybody, this is Dan. I wanted to welcome you to today's class, Mindset in Action, Break Through Your Impossible. We are broadcasting this in person and live through our live stream. We are also recording this for agents to watch at a later time. So let's go ahead and get started. Today's purpose is we're going to look at ourselves and perform a reality check about our mindset and actions in our business. Develop a working strategy to overcome our own obstacles that stand in our way. Commit to detailed daily to-do lists, which includes skill building and lead generation, and break through the impossible and unable and forever change your future. Priority 1, identify your weakness. So what is your weakness? Is your daily work hours always overloaded with tasks and appointments? You always have stuff going on, yeah. Never leaving time to do lead generation. So if you're working on files, you're working with clients, you don't have time to do lead generation, you're going to have a void in your schedule, right? If this is true, you need to outsource some of those tasks. Give them to other people who are better suited to do those tasks. Because if you're just working on files and you're not prospecting, what's going to happen to your business, right? And we all know how that feels to be busy with customers. Do you think about what you do with your time and then just occupy it with nothing productive? So do you look back and see what you did during the week and see, was it really productive? I won't say the word Facebook. Waste the time away and call it work. There's a lot of stuff in real estate that we can do that's busy work that's not productive. We can get hung up on a file, we can get hung up on a customer and really not be getting anything done, but create a whole bunch of hours for ourselves in front of the computer or at the desk, and that's not productive. If this is the case, you need personal accountability to somebody to make you do it. Who has an accountability partner? Raise your hand. Right? It can be a spouse, it can be a friend, it can be a colleague. It can't be a spouse. I'm hearing from the front row.
It is my spouse.
All right, so the main thing is you need somebody that's going to say to you, Mario, how is your week looking? Are you hitting those goals? Do I know what those goals are? Why is that important? Because if you know you have to answer for something, you have a much greater chance of doing that activity. But here's what's really cool about it. When you know that someone's supporting you, you have a much greater chance of getting excited about doing that stuff. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of my personal story as we move forward. Do you fear rejection? Yeah. Nobody enjoys rejection. I just really don't like you. I don't want your product. I don't want your service. That does not make us feel good, does it? Okay, so anyone that says they don't have a little bit of fear of that rejection isn't being honest. If it's true that you feel that way, and many of us do, practice skills with yourself and with a partner to seek inner confidence. So can I ask everyone in here a really important question? What number comes after 16?
17.
Did anybody have to struggle? Please say no.
No.
Why? Why did you know that?
Because we could take our shoes off.
Repetition.
Repetition, right? Did you know that when you were 2 years old?
No.
No. But there came a point when you knew that and you knew it. So in your industry, you've got to get really, really good at knowing your answer. So let me ask you, Mr. or Mrs. Realtor, why should I list my home with you? Now, if the response is, well, you probably aren't going to win that listing, right? Why should I buy a home with you? So if you're not confident, I promise you your customer won't be confident. But retrospectively, if you're very confident, they're going to have confidence in you. And what builds true confidence?
Knowledge.
Knowledge, competence, right? We don't fake it till we make it in an industry like this. Do you want your pilot to fake it till he makes it? No, right? So don't do that yourselves. Have that knowledge base. Practice it with a partner. When you're with somebody who you trust and who's trying to help you get better, they're going to be critical, but they're also going to be supportive. And I promise you, it's better to sit across from someone who you know, like, and trust and have positive feedback about your presentation than to walk into a presentation and to have it not go your way. And when you get really good at this, you should stop practicing, right? Isn't that what all the major athletes do? They get good and then they never practice anymore. No, you should always practice, right? Does Tiger Woods still practice? Did he just win the Masters? He never stopped practicing. He always practices. They say for every shot that a basketball player makes in a game, they've taken thousands of practice shots and made and missed that shot thousands and thousands of times. Most of the athletes we watch on TV get to their training facilities at 5 o'clock in the morning and do repetitive training. Why? Because they want to be their best on game day. What's your game day, everybody?
Whenever you get in front of a client.
When you're in front of a client, right? So you don't want to be tired. You don't want to be unrehearsed. You don't want to be unprepared. So practice getting in front of someone you know, like, and trust, and getting really good at it. But then when you get good, don't stop practicing. Do you believe that you have less ability to deliver top service when competing with another agent? Do you believe that? I'm just going to make a name up here. Greg Blackhall. Completely theoretical. You go on a listing appointment and you find out through the card on the table that you're competing directly against Greg. Okay? Now you know Greg is an excellent realtor, a lot of experience. Do you feel confident that you have what it takes to be shoulder to shoulder with an excellent professional in your industry? If you have any self-doubt about that, then it's time to practice and get better. Because if you don't believe in you, it's very difficult for you to sell you, which is what we're doing. So we need to help you believe in you so that you can stand with those other agents. You won't be the one the client hires if you aren't the one that believes in yourself. So you have to remind yourself that you care and you have the same tools, and in some cases even more, right? Tools than your competition. So you want to believe in yourself. What is our business? Real estate is about people. So look at what I put on the board. And for those of you that are listening remotely, you're going to hear me talk more about this in future trainings, but I put an acronym up on our board here in class. And it's the term SDS. Does anyone know what SDS stands for? If you saw my Facebook post this week and you read it in the discussion group, you'll know what that means. SDS. So it stands for serve, don't sell. So serve first, sell last. Has anyone ever been sold to? Oh, don't be one of those people. Nobody wants to be sold to. Has anyone had someone genuinely help them, asking nothing in return? Who do you want to do business with? The second one, right? Okay. So serve, don't sell. How is success created in our business? It's our ability to influence other people. We have to influence them in order to have success. Influence is our capacity or power of persons or things to be a compelling force on or produce effects on the action, behavior, opinions, and etc. Quite simply put, if I can influence you to act, then I can best serve you. So you can tell your friend all the time, you need to get out of that relationship, or you need to look at getting a different career. But if they don't act, if you're not influencing what they do, they'll stay in that same rut, won't they? Who has kids? You ever tell them to do something just once and they listen the first time? So parents have a really creative way of influencing their children, don't they? Right? There's different ways to influence their behavior, right? When they were little, how did you influence their behavior? It was different. There were timeouts and restrictions and groundings that probably happen, right? As they get older, you influence them differently. Well, your customers are the same way. You're telling them to price their home at a certain price, but you've got to be able to influence them to do what you need them to do. If you can't do that, then they won't end up selling their house, will they? They'll overprice it and it won't sell. So we have to influence them. How do you feel about your ability to influence anyone? Who in this room believes that if they really have to, they can influence another person to act? That's called leadership. Leadership is when you can get another person to act. True leadership is when you can get lots of people to act, right? So your customers, there could be hundreds of them. Through your career, you've influenced them to act. What are some of the things that you've influenced them to do? Sign an agreement, right? Put their home on the market. Reduce their price or increase their price. Pay closing costs, right? You've influenced them in many different ways, right? Your skill to influence is directly attributed to your resistance to put yourself in a situation where you can be rejected. So if I want to influence Silas to do a particular activity, I have to face the reality that there's a chance Silas could say no, right? And there's a little bit of fear of rejection. What if he says no? How's that going to make me feel about myself? What if that damages my confidence? You will possibly be rejected. That's okay, isn't it? Because if you're being rejected, that tells you that you're playing the game, that you're.
So you can be tested by.
That's right.
What knowledge?
You can grow from that rejection. How do you react to doing anything may result in being rejected? The average person says, I'm not going to knock on that door. I'm not going to make that phone call. I'm not going to follow up with that friend of mine. I don't want to be rejected.
So just to add to this, I've done a lot of studies on fear specifically, and there's a part of our primal brain, it's in the deepest parts of our brain, and we are hardwired at our core to be averted to danger. Now, what's happened is we have taken the rest of our brain to convince ourselves that danger means something other than, oh, maybe I'll get kidnapped if I knock on that door. Danger, danger, run away. We come up with all these reasons why we shouldn't do what we want to do because we have this primal part of our brain. So a lot of overcoming these fears is just reprogramming ourselves to say, okay, well, that's irrational. Like, I'm a big guy. I'm not likely to get abducted by, somebody that lives in this neighborhood. And if so, I know every other house on the street has a camera. So, there's mitigated risk. And so that's the biggest part of this is just getting over that part of our brain that goes, no, avoid all risk at all costs, just stay away.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And so we are hardwired to do what? To be a little distrusting, to avoid things that are uncomfortable, because discomfort, when we're in the wild, so to speak, could potentially mean harm to ourselves or danger. But we have to rationalize through that and say, am I afraid to knock on a door because there's real, true danger? How would I know if there was true danger? What's a good way to measure that?
The door's kind of like still open as you're reaching for it. The door's like open and not even locked. Right?
Well, you might look at.
I can tell you millions of ways because I watch too many
Yeah.
times.
So, okay. So what's the difference between the agent that is paralyzed by that fear and the one that's selling 100 homes in that neighborhood because they're knocking every week? Overcoming that, being rational, having a backup plan. What's more scary than your fear? I'm going to tell you what it is. You know what's scarier than any of your single fears? Being irrelevant. Being irrelevant. So you can scare yourself into irrelevancy in this industry. You can talk yourself out of calling. If you don't want to not call, I don't think anyone's going to abduct you through the phone. Okay, but I promise you the same person that won't knock won't call. Why? Because they'll find another reason. Well, what if they put me on the do not call list? Or what if they're on the do not call list and I get a violation from the DNC police, right? They come to my office, they hunt me down, okay? What I'm saying is challenge your fears with rational thought. How does the average person change their mindset? Welcome to the danger zone. If your business relies on getting a yes and doing nothing is an automatic no, why is this acceptable? I have to sell some property, which means I have to get in front of people. But if I'm telling myself I won't do that, then I'm giving myself a no. I've put myself out of business. And aren't you supposed to be your number one advocate? I mean, who's supposed to be pushing you harder than you? Like, if you don't believe in yourself, then I got news for you, folks. People aren't going to line up at your door and go, I really want to help you here. You gotta do it for yourself first, and then they'll get behind you. Let your results do the talking. Go for a yes. An answer gets a no. You still win because you're practicing your presentation. You're getting better and better. Who's ever watched someone give a speech on TV and thought, man, that's pretty difficult, right? It probably was for them the first time they gave it, but I promise you the night before they paced in their bedroom back and forth, giving that speech over and over and over again until their spouse says, okay, honey, I think you've nailed it, okay? So that when they get in front of you on television, that speech is very polished. The same thing goes for your presentation. Try and fail, but do not fail to try. I follow someone on Facebook I encourage all of you to look at and follow. His name is Robin Sharma, and his book is called The 5 a.m. Club. He also has a book called A Leader Without a Title. And so what Robin Sharma talks about is the worst thing that can happen to you is getting to your very last day, looking back and going, if I'd only tried. Regret. So when your mind is trying to talk you out of doing something really exciting for yourself because of fear, ask yourself, if I got in a time machine and went forward and could talk to my future self, would I be happy that I backed away from this challenge, or would I ask myself to please move forward with action? Trying is the only right answer. It's okay to fail. It's not okay not to try. Feed the mind with confidence. Believe in yourself. Know the tools and the tasks. Let me ask you, do you know how to do the following things? Search properties on the MLS. Use the Lockbox app or the Lockbox. Make showing appointments. Fill out contracts and forms and addendums. Research comparable properties. Get photos of your property. Describe a property. Put a listing in the MLS. Attend property showings. Research tax data. Use our back office website. Drive an automobile. Have conversations. Create and send emails. Make and answer phone calls. And be kind and share the knowledge that you have. If you don't know how to do all those things, then you've got some what we call core competencies that you need to brush up on. If you do know how to do all those things, you're in a very good position because you understand your industry and what you're supposed to do. Know the tools and tasks related to your business. What are your questions so far? Or your feedback or your thoughts? Anybody have any questions or input so far?
Not yet.
All right. So this is really about changing your perspective on what you expect from yourself in your business.
Dave,
Yes, Mario.
I have a question for you. Maybe it's too soon, maybe at the end of the thing, but I know I'm confident and I know I can do it. And I know I have to learn what I did a month or 2 months ago is more than I can ask for, but I'm still like drowning. I'm still learning how to get to the age of that. Even though I did it before, I'm still like that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know the confidence is going to build up to that person? It's just by doing it. Because if I sit in the class, I go there and I go a little, like I pump a little gas on it and then I'll clean up my whatever it is. I was telling him that, classes or talking, I talk to you, I talk to him, and many things like that may help.
Mm-hmm.
And many people get into the industry to do it. How do you know the confidence?
Well, I'm going to boil it down.
As you.
Yeah.
As
So I'm going to boil it down really simple for you. There's a lot of things we do in this business that are really not income related, right? But the two things that you're going to do to make money in this business is show houses and write contracts and preview houses and write listings. So those are the two things as an agent that you should really be good at. The other things, there's resources around, there's MLS trainings and things like that. So what you have to ask yourself is, can I do those things? And if you can't, that's okay, because you need to partner up with someone else and practice doing that. Not with a real customer who's depending upon your skill, but with a fellow agent, a mentor, a broker, a team leader, and get good at those. Get your questions answered. What am I going to encounter? And then take those experiences into the field and then see how that translates for you. Because most people lack confidence because they haven't rehearsed, they haven't practiced, and they just don't know what's coming. So you need to understand what are the things that are going to happen in this transaction with a buyer or a seller. And if stripping all that away, because I don't think it's the tasks that scare you, correct? It's not looking in the MLS. It's getting there with a customer and having them ask you a question you don't know the answer to. So practice that. Get with an experienced agent and say, I need 30 minutes of your time. Let me give you an example. Kelly, I need 30 minutes of your time. I'll buy you lunch on Wednesday if you'll take 30 minutes with me, and let me just run through a couple scenarios. I have a buyer, I have a seller. What should I expect from that particular interaction with that customer? And she'll tell you. It might take more than 30 minutes, but she'll tell you what to typically expect out of buyers and sellers. And then you'll have a general framework for what you're going to be getting into. And I've known that that makes people a lot more confident.
Yeah.
What is the picture going to look like? And the other thing too is don't be afraid of what you don't know, because when you get there, who do you have as a resource? You've got 9 people here as a resource, plus all your fellow agents and your team leaders. So you've always got somebody in your earpiece to say, I'm not sure of this, but let me find out. So you do have that, but rehearsing and practicing is an important piece. All right. What should every real estate agent do to become great at influencing people? Master the skills that cause you to influence people. What are we able to control that influences people? Our body language, our tonality, and our words. You guys ready for this? I'm going to give you a quick example, and then we're going to watch a couple short video clips. Hey, Kelly, how are you today?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm fine. How was my tonality?
Not
Garbage, right?
Body.
Kelly actually is so depressed, she just wants to go home now. She's not even feeling good, right? But how about this? Hey, Mario, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. It's so nice to see you. How was my tonality? Was more commanding, right? Was more positive. So we do need to think about that. And then let's do one. And those of you that are watching or listening live won't be able to see this, but you can envision it. I've got Pete here in the front row. So we're going to do a quick handshake. And I'm going to say, hey, Pete, how are you, man?
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. Yeah. How was that fish I just gave you, right? There was no confidence in that body language. But what about if I'm chest erect, I'm standing up, and I say, Pete, it's so good to see you. How are you? Very different experience, right? So body language matters. Does this look confident to you? So don't go into your presentations like this. Hi, I'm Dan. I think I'm here to list your property. You probably don't want to, right? Go in like this. What a terrific house. This is a great place. I can't wait to list your home. Have that confidence about yourself, okay? And then the words you use. Well, things like okay, unsure, I think so, right? Be confident with what you say. How much are the HOA fees here? $450 per year payable at the first of the year. Is that confident? How about, I think they're around like maybe 400-ish. Is that confident? Is that going to instill confidence in your buyer? No, they're going to be
Write
like,
a check for 400-ish.
and I'm always making these comparisons to other industries because it makes us chuckle, but I just want you to think about your doctor. He goes, I don't know what the outcome's going to be. It's going to be the right or the left leg, something like that. Are you confident? You're like, no, I'm not going to stay with this fella, right? Okay. So we're going to watch a little video clip here on body language, and hopefully those of you that are watching remotely, this will play for. This is Brian Tracy. Tracy, I apologize. He's an author and success expert, and just ask him. He'll tell you.
Everybody wants to be more effective. Everybody wants to influence other people better in many different ways. And one of the strongest ways you have is the use of body language. Body language, according to Dr. Albert Moravian at UCLA, constitutes 55% of the message that you send in a face-to-face communication. So what you have to do is you have to learn how to use body language in an effective way. Some of my friends are the world's experts on body language. And you'll find, by the way, that body language is the same in many cases worldwide. There are certain differences. In ancient times, when people met new people, especially in strange places at night and other places, they would have to be very careful because you never knew if someone was dangerous. So what they would do is they would open up their hands when they met a new person. Today, we shake hands. And we shake hands with the sword hand. We shake hands with the gun hand. This is to show the other person that there is no weapon hidden. When we open up both hands, it shows that we have no weapons. This is quite common. So one of the first things you do in body language is you just open your hands. Now, today, people actually embrace each other. When you embrace each other with both hands, it means that you cannot have any weapons, and neither can they. Another form of body language, which is very important, is to smile at people and look straight at them and hold your hands. Now, some people say that when a person folds their arms, it means that they're closed off. Well, this is not always true. In many cases, it's because people are uncomfortable folding their arms, or they're cold, or they have an ache or a pain somewhere. So never interpret that automatically. But if you're in a meeting with someone else and you find yourself folding your arms, deliberately open your arms. When you open your arms, what you say is, I am open to what you are saying. I'm open to your message. When you close your arms, it can be misinterpreted. Now, another form of body language is nodding and smiling. It's just leaning slightly forward and nodding and smiling. You see, in psychology, we always pay the most attention to people who we most value. You can remember being in a situation where somebody says something and you immediately jump up, you immediately lean forward, you're immediately engaged in the conversation. That tells you that that person grabbed your attention. So the message that you convey in a sales conversation is 55% body language and nonverbal, 38% the tone of voice, and only 7% the actual words that you use. Remember, Maya Angelou said that people will forget everything that you said in a conversation, but they'll never forget the way that you made them feel. So a form of body language you can use is to stand straight when you talk. Stand straight, open your eyes, look directly at the person, smile, and shake hands firmly to show them that you're happy to be here, that you're happy to meet them. I remember a man in my seminar, and he was from India, and he was saying to me that he was really concerned because he really knew his subject well, he understood his product or service, but when he met a new customer, the new customer would lose interest almost immediately in talking to him. Well, when I shook hands with him, his handshake was like a wet fish. His hand just hung there like it was dead from the elbow down. And I'd lived in India for long, long periods of time. And I realized that he didn't understand that in Western culture, a firm handshake means character, honesty, quality, trustworthiness, and a whole bunch of other things. He just thought it was just something that people did. So when he met a new person, he just hold out his hand like this. And the person would have to take his hand, and he just leave. So I taught him how to shake hands firmly. I took him aside and made him practice. I said, practice this every time you meet somebody. I met him about 2 months later, and his career had taken off. He said all of the initial reluctance he used to get from prospects was gone completely. When he shook hands with them firmly and looked them in the eye, he said nobody would ever tell him this was his problem. Another thing, by the way, is that first impressions are lasting. One of the things that I'm concerned about, as you can see, is dress. Many people today have been misled. The fact is that 95% of the first impression you make on other people is dress and grooming. Many people say, people shouldn't judge me by the way I look. Well, you judge everybody else by the way they look. Imagine if you walked into a restaurant, a nice restaurant, and the guy who came up to service you was wearing short pants, an undershirt, a tractor cap facing backwards, and beach thongs in a first-class restaurant. How would you feel about dining at that restaurant? Would you think that this person was mentally ill? Well, how do you deal with someone who is trying to sell you an expensive product or service who looks like a complete bum, looks like a homeless person? So be very important. It's very important. First impression, sit upright, face forward, and ask a lot of questions. The very best form of body language is to ask really good questions and lean forward and listen closely to the answers and nod and smile and agree. And if you'll do that, you'll make a tremendous impression on other people, especially a first impression. So thank you for watching. What's the one action that you're going to take from now on to use your body language more effectively? Are you going to open your eyes, shake hands firmly, smile, tell people you're happy to be with them, ask them questions, and listen closely? Leave a comment below. And until next time, remember that only you are responsible for your success. Whatever you're achieving is coming from your own actions and your own behavior. In many different ways. And one of the strongest ways you have is the use of body language.
All right, so we're actually going to talk now about the tone of voice that we use, what we call tonality. And this is a really good video, and you're going to find in yourselves that you probably have been doing some of those things that are a little bit more approval seeking than you might like, but I want you to take this information and use it in your business. Any questions about the last video, thoughts or comments? Have any of you ever dealt with somebody who really wasn't professional? Yeah, didn't really carry themselves well, maybe at a restaurant or in business, and they might have shown up inappropriately dressed or not ready for the presentation. It makes a really big difference. So if you have to make a decision when you're dressing for an appointment, if you're like, well, I'm not really sure if this is appropriate or not, always go on the side of being more professional. People will give you a lot more respect if you dress the part. They just will. It's automatic. When someone has a tie on, you assume a lot of things about them, don't you? What do you assume? They know what they're talking about. They're professional. They invest in themselves and their time. So I really think that's an important component. All right, let's take a look at this next video.
Hello. Today I want to talk to you about what may be the most important aspect of nonverbal and verbal communication. It stems from every single word that you say. You have no choice but to express yourself with a certain tonality. Tonality is so powerful. Think about the days when you were a young kid and your parents said, "Don't use that tone of voice with me, young man." It's so impacting. It oftentimes carries more weight than the actual words that you use. The very important thing to remember is, regardless of whether you think you're using a certain tonality or not, everything you say is said with the tonality. I think most of the time people think they're using a tonality that is very neutral and it kind of maintains the current vibe or the current energy of the interaction, while they don't really realize they're coming from a little bit different perspective than what they think. Now, the three different types of tonality are rapport breaking, neutral, and rapport seeking. So think about rapport seeking for a minute. Think about you're talking to a boss or you're at an interview. Most of the time, the inflection of your voice towards the end of the sentence is going to go up. So let's do something easy with "how are you doing?" So you're going to say something like, "How are you doing?" Very supplicating, once again, very looking for approval, trying not to ruffle any feathers, trying not to give them any reason to feel anything except for you're going to be friendly for them. "How are you today? How are you doing?" It sounds like a sales call almost. "How's your week been?" Very high pitch. Actually, when you think about it more, the entire tone sometimes is high pitch with inflection at the end. So "how are you?" Very high level the whole time, almost like you're singing a little bit. When you listen to it, you see people interacting, you hear that tone, it's actually kind of hard to listen to because you realize the other person is brown nosing. It's almost kind of offensive. But the problem is too many people use that tone at the beginning of the interaction thinking that's the best way to come across, because once again, you're not ruffling any feathers. You're meeting someone new. You want them to like you, don't you? Yes, but you also want them to respect you. Okay, so now you can speak with a neutral tonality. So now you're talking like I'm talking right now. "How are you?" You know, it's not too high. You're not singing. You're not in your head voice, but you're not also coming down. You're not breaking rapport either. So "how are you? How was your week? How's everything been going with you? How are the kids?" Anything like that is very neutral. It's going to kind of maintain the energy you put forth, unless, of course, you're coming from this rapport-seeking tonality that I started with. And lastly, you've got what's called rapport-breaking tonality. So that typically is going to trail off with a lowering in the tone of your voice. So how does this come across when I say this? "How are you? How was your week? Oh yeah, how's the wife been?" It sounds like a boss speaking to a coworker or a employee, doesn't it? It's actually the most powerful type of tonality because it indicates that you're not worried about ruffling feathers. You're comfortable the way you're perceived. And it's very strange because there's nothing specifically about that type of tonality that intuitively tells you that he's trying to break rapport or that he's not worried about how he comes across, but it's so easy to identify. I mean, you could take anyone off the street and show them me saying these three things and say, guess who he's interacting with? Is he worried about how he's perceived? Does he put the person he's talking to status above him? I would guess that a 10-year-old kid oftentimes would get everything correct because it's such a crux of human interaction and human communication. So when I talk about the communication equilibrium, you can think of it as a seesaw, as a balance, as I always talk about, or you can just think of it, are you interacting with someone who's cooler than you or not? I mean, I heard many years ago, the world is a big high school. Cool people stay cool and dorks stay dorks. Well, that's not true. People obviously change, but there is always a perception where people are trying to scan out your social value or are you cool or not. So pretty much when I say if you're slipping in the scale, just think of it as, does a person you talk to all of a sudden think you're a little less cool? Do they think they're a little cooler than you? Are they putting you below them? Are you putting them on a pedestal? When that happens, I'm referring to when the equilibrium shifts against you, you're at 40, they're at 60. So that's another way to kind of conceptualize this premise. So say you're approaching the quarterback of the team and you don't play football and you're trying to come across in a really good light. You're going to feel when you're interacting to them very stifled. You're going to feel like you can't be yourself, like you're trying to put on a good impression because you know what they think of you can have an impact on your life. All of a sudden it's the end of a football game and he's walking out and he's like, oh, hey, how are you doing, man? How'd you think of the game? And everyone sees that. Well, they're going to think, wow, this guy must be cool. The coolest guy in the school is giving him props. That's very important to think about. So you're going to come at it with a very rapport-seeking tonality. And the problem is what you're trying to do is actually the opposite of what you're going to achieve. You want him to like you. Instead, you're going to come across as someone that doesn't respect themselves, therefore doesn't think that the quarterback should respect him, and odds are the quarterback won't respect him and won't like him. So it's very important when you're going up to someone who it's very important to you what they think of you, watch that tonality. Let's use this in a business setting. You're talking to your boss. I coach people all the time who say, how should I interact with my boss? I feel like they don't respect me. They talk down to me. Well, I say, let's pretend we're interacting right now. And 99% of the time, they're using a very supplicating, rapport-seeking, oh, please like me, throw me a bone, put me on mentality. Whereas I don't coach them to say, you know, come at them with a rapport-breaking tonality, try a neutral tonality. And the surprising thing is when you're using a neutral tonality with someone who you perceive as higher value to you, you will feel like you're talking with a very rapport-breaking tonality because you're so used to supplicating and so used to putting them on a pedestal. So even if you start to speak with them like, yeah, how was your week? Was everything good? A very on the same page as the other person, you'll feel like you're saying, how was your week? How are things with your wife? But in actuality, that's your perception. That's not what's really going on. So if you're in a situation like this, and most people are, that they have someone that's very important how they perceive them, whether because of work or for personal reasons, watch your tonality and try to come at them with a much more rapport neutral tone as opposed to rapport seeking. Basically what tonality is telling people in a non-directly communicative way is that how do you respect yourself compared to the person that you're talking to? Do you respect them more than you? Basic as that. If you respect them more than you, it's natural for people to use an inflection in their voice that's very rapport seeking. If you put your value the same as them, it's going to be more neutral. And if you put their value below you, it's going to be more neutral to rapport breaking. So keep that in mind when you want to control your perception, especially in a situation where you're talking to someone that you perceive as having a little higher value or is a little cooler than you. Try to come in with a much more neutral tonality as opposed to what feels more natural with a very supplicating tone. Use this today, and I think you'll be impressed with how much it allows you to control other people's perceptions of you. And once you use it in a very small instance, you'll realize how effective it is. You'll start to notice both consciously and subconsciously how you're coming off with these different tonalities and begin to use it more and more effectively as you begin to understand and appreciate its true value and its power.
All right, and then the last video is Mr. Mike Ferry, who is one of the world's most well-known real estate coaches. And he speaks very bluntly but directly, and I think that you have to kind of take into consideration that he's trained tens of thousands of top producing agents with some of this material. So what he's going to talk about is developing your skills, taking those practice shots like we talked about earlier. And this will be the last video that we watch.
Welcome back to Mike Ferry TV. A couple weeks ago, I asked you to strongly consider tracking your numbers. I'm just curious what you've done with that. As you know, the last 2 weeks, I talked to you a lot about Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, Your Right to Be Rich, how to become better at what you do. So what we're looking at, of course, as we progress through Mike Ferry TV, skills, dialogue, scripts, mindset, all the things that are required to build a great salesperson. So today, I want to spend a little time with you on a very important topic, which is very abused in real estate. In fact, it's almost not used at all. I titled this Practicing Scripts and Dialogues, Developing Skills. So let me ask you a question. Would you accept this thought? Knowledge equals confidence. Yes. Watch. Ignorance equals fear. Oh no. See, you have to think about what I just said. Knowledge equals confidence. Yes. Ignorance equals fear. Oh no, I don't want to get involved in it. I don't want to see that. And I don't want to be there. And I hope they don't say something. You ever noticed how when you're very knowledgeable about any topic, any thought process, any action, how confident you are to walk into it? You ever notice that if you're a little bit ajar, you're not exactly sure, how all the little fears start to rise and they stop you from performing? Well, in selling real estate, that is 100% the case. The stronger your knowledge of your scripts, the stronger your knowledge of your activities, the stronger your knowledge of who you are and what you can do, the higher the level of performance. But when there's ignorance, meaning you don't know what to say, don't know what to do, and watch this example. Have you ever driven by a for sale by owner and not stopped? Of course you have. And why'd you drive by and not stop? Because you didn't know what to say when you got to the front door. See, the knowledge of what to say gives you the confidence, knock, knock. The fear, not knowing what to say, gives you the opportunity to accelerate, get out of the neighborhood. So how do we become more knowledgeable? And the answer is practicing your scripts and dialogues. So I wrote down a couple of thoughts. I'm going to go through them with you today. The two most important rules in selling are A, asking good questions of people that you're talking to. B, listening carefully to the answers. Two most important rules in selling are asking good questions to people you're talking to. Now, if you are approaching a seller, you're approaching a prospect, a past client, centers of influence, buy owner expired, and you don't know what to say, how much does that affect your confidence in walking up and having a conversation about them possibly buying or selling a home? It affects it 100%. So therefore, asking good questions is an issue that we have to develop. How do you learn to ask good questions? You have to practice all the time. But then I said B, listening carefully to the answers. Well, how do you do these two things? Practice and role play. Practice and role play. See, in a real business, practice and role play are critical. I remember many years ago, I had the good fortune of talking to a professional football coach. I asked him, I said, how much time does a pro football team actually spend in practice prior to a 1-hour game? His answer was 61 hours of practice for a 1-hour game. I said, no, wait a minute. These are professional football players. These are the best in the world. Why would they practice 61 hours? He said, so we don't make a mistake, so we don't screw up. He said, every professional practices every day. He said, amateurs don't practice at all. And I thought to myself, this industry is an industry of amateurs. Real estate's an industry of amateurs. We're charging professional fees for amateur performance. Now think about that. We expect to get paid premium fees for really, in most cases, amateur performance. Why? We don't practice. So how do we become good at asking questions? I practice. I wrote on a second thought. Practice revolves around two issues: the amount of time you spend daily doing it, and B, the intensity of that time. Two issues in practicing. The amount of time. Am I going to spend 5 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, 40 minutes a day? I've listened to some of the top agents in the country talk. Some of them still spend, and these are people operating up here, 30, 40 minutes a day practicing. Some of them spent 2-3 hours a day when we first got together so they could learn the scripts and dialogues to develop the confidence to go in and do their job. Watch, the amount of time I'm willing to spend and the intensity of that time. Am I distracted, looking around and checking my iPhone and listening for an email to come in, bing, bing, and Natalia, hi Mary, how are you? And have to have a cup of coffee and trying to find my note. Or am I focused on my practice? All right, we're going to role play now the just listed script, and you go right into it. If you don't have any intensity, you can't expect any results. So I wrote down, create a practice schedule routine for yourself. Most of the top agents will practice first thing in the morning. They walk in the office, they get their administrative work done, maybe they get their cup of coffee, and then they'll practice and role play 30, 40 minutes every day. How come if the agent's doing 50, 75, 100 deals a year of practice of scripts, and they have this production, and the ones that don't practice have that production, and when I tell them they might consider practice, they want to get mad at me because they're not professional real estate people. You're a professional real estate agent. You got to practice. And then, of course, I wrote down your practice time should be on your daily schedule, no different than prospecting and lead follow-up. Practice. I had a guy say to me one time that used to be a pro football player, Listen to this great quote. Poor practice, no matter how much you do of it, does not improve performance because it's still poor practice. So therefore, if you're going to practice your scripts and dialogues, if you're going to become knowledgeable and confident, then you're going to have to understand that you have to practice the right scripts. I mean, watch. If you practice the following, Mr. Ferry, would you cut your commission? How much? If you're practicing, how much? That's what you're going to say you're in the field. How much? Mr. Ferry, I want you to cut your commission. No. Any other questions? See, I have to practice the intensity. I have to practice the right things. Hi, my name is Mike. I was wondering, when do you plan on moving? Hi, do you want to sell your home? That doesn't work. Okay, poor practice, poor scripts, poor dialogues, nothing but trouble all the time. Then I wrote down this thought, okay? If you want to become good, and I don't know how good you want to become, but if you want to become good, how about this? Record your practice sessions. Turn on the recorder, record them. Listen back. Are you asking the questions? Are you following the scripts? Are you operating with intensity? Okay? I wrote down a great quote somebody gave me, one of our top agents. Our growth is determined by our willingness to practice, and our confidence comes from that practice. Customers and prospects want confident people. Isn't that a great thought? Our growth is determined by our willingness to practice, and our confidence comes from that practice. Customers and prospects want confident people, okay? And the last thought I want to give you on this thought about practice, because the truth is, we don't do it and we should be. Watch. There's always room for improvement, no matter how good we are, how big our numbers are, how successful we are. We have agents that are doing 150, 200, 250 transactions a year, not REO business, straight residential. They practice their scripts every day. Okay, challenge to you. You want to be knowledgeable and confident, or ignorant and fearful? Do you want to be productive and profitable, or be like most agents? You wouldn't be watching if we didn't both know the answer. Put the business to work for you at the highest level by practicing. See you next week.
All right, so hopefully that makes sense and all of you can get some value out of that. So what if you took action and mastered influencing people to choose for you your real estate service? The result would be a direct impact on your mindset and level of confidence, and you would do more business and enjoy a higher income than you've ever done in real estate. So I want to take something that Mike said that's really super impactful, and that is the top earning agents in our business are practicing. Well, what do you mean? Why would they practice? They know what they're doing. They're practicing because they want to get better today than they were yesterday. See, the industry evolves and business changes. So if you're not getting better than you were yesterday, then what happens to your business? It stagnates, right? And I talk about this in a lot of my classes, but people wiggle into a comfort zone. So if you do 25 transactions a year, you wiggle into that comfortable 25 transactions a year. And when you watch most real estate professionals, they don't see year-over-year increases in their business because they've wiggled into that comfort zone. And they think they know and they don't need to practice anymore, and they don't practice, and the result is the same 25 to 30 transactions they did last year, right? But the ones that understand that I need to be better today than I was yesterday are always practicing, always getting better, and consequently, when you get better, what happens to your business?
Increases.
It increases. So if you're looking at your board and your board looks the same as it did last month and the month before, then you need to start practicing. What do I mean? Get with somebody who you know, like, and trust, and practice getting better and better and better at delivering your message. Remember, we only make money when we go on an appointment, right? Appointments are the only way we make money. Do you make money when you call the title company and work on files and put stuff in the MLS? The only time I'm making money is when I'm standing with an appointment and having them sign a paper that gives me the ability to list and sell their home. Or when I'm standing with a buyer and having them sign a contract that makes an offer on a house so I can sell them a property. That's the only two appointments that I'm actually making money. Everything else is incidental work to the transaction. So remember that. And by the way, you have to do all those other things, or you have to have somebody do all those other things. You have to prospect, you have to work your files and all that. But just understanding that's got to be your main focus. Have you ever been in a car accident? Do you still drive? And this is kind of a silly way to say it, but people who've been in a car accident, they still drive. They just become better drivers, and they're more aware of how to avoid another accident. So when someone tells you no, right, and you learn they didn't want my service, you just get better. It doesn't mean you just give up on the business. Do you feel incapable of acquiring the ability to influence others because of your personal fears? Are you handicapped? And I'm not going to necessarily, actually, I do think I want to watch this video. This is I was going to stop, but I want you guys to watch these videos because they're really compelling. And I want you to ask yourself a couple of questions as we watch them.
My doctors never thought that I'd be able to walk, and today I'm walking. Don't be afraid of work. Don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to network. And don't be shy. Go out and try, and you never know who you may inspire along the way.
So I wanted to share that with you because we see ordinary people do extraordinary things, don't we? How much more can we do in this room and watching and listening live to this broadcast? How much can we do? So do you have a handicap? Your handicap is only the lack of skill that you have because you've not taken the time to learn, right? It's time to stop avoiding opportunities and start applying yourself to skills and actions that build your business. Remind yourself of the purpose. So why are we doing this? Why are we in class? Why are we training? Why are we getting better? There's a reason for that, right? Is it because of the money? Or is it because of the things that we want to have in our lives? Is it because we want to be able to vacation and we want to be able to pay off debt and we want to be able to have a nest egg for later and donate and give to other organizations and have a nice vehicle? That's why we're doing what we're doing. And so with that, I think we're just about done. Greg, can you look? Is that where it stops?
I can't see yours.
That's where it stops. Bear with me, everybody. I want to make sure that I don't miss any content because we need that. But I don't know if this is different slides down here. Let me just continue. I think this is more to the class, so I don't want to cut anybody short. I think there's a few more slides. Success as a real estate agent requires devotion and action that results in successful closed transactions. And what is it that determines your level of success? Your personal ability to discover and connect and influence people to choose them for your real estate services. What do top successful agents do to earn them the highest income? They perfect skills of discovering, connecting, and influencing people that need their professional real estate services. All right, so some fundamentals. Set up a daily structure. Who has a calendar that they use 5 days a week? 6 days a week, 7 days a week. You got to know what you're doing before the day starts, right? If you just get up and let life happen, you'll get a phone call from a title company, you get a phone call from a buyer, pretty soon your day's gone. So you got to have structure in your calendar. You got to practice and master the skills. So you got to come to class. You got to go online and train. So top recommendations for setting up your work structure. The first half of your day is focused on capturing new leads. Why do we want to do that in the morning? Yeah, the day hasn't beaten you up, right? You're fresh. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you've had some things happen. You're probably a little bit tired. You're not going to have the best foot forward when you're prospecting. So you're more energetic in the morning. You have a better positive attitude. You'll be certain to attend to lead generation rather than missing it because of other interruptions if you do it first thing in the morning. You're better off to call people early, and even though you might not get all of them, the ones you do get will have a quality interaction than to put it off till 3 o'clock. What's going to happen if you put it off till 3 or 4 o'clock? You're going to have to pick up the baby from the sitter. You're going to have to pick up the dry cleaning. You're going to have to run, do an errand for your spouse. Your car is going to break down. You're going to have things happen, right? The second half of your day should be focused on attending to appointments. You mean that I can tell people that I want to do appointments in the second half of the day? Yeah. So if Silas calls and says, Dan, there's a beautiful home over on Spring Hill Drive. I'd love to see it. I'll say to Silas, great. I have Tuesday between 2 and 4 available or Thursday between 2 and 5. Which works better for you? I'm giving him options. But what if I say, okay, Silas, when do you want to see it? Who's got control of my schedule?
Client.
Client does, right? And who has to have control of your schedule?
You do.
You do. Am I telling you to be completely inflexible and not bend and not make accommodations for your customer? Of course I'm not. But you have to have some control of that. Giving them options is a good way to do that. And you need to schedule your prospecting as a part of your schedule. If you just did 10 hours of prospecting every week, you would triple your business. I want to say that again, and I want you to write it down. If you just did 10 hours of prospecting a week, you would triple your business. Because see, what happens with prospecting is it's compound effect, meaning that prospecting turns into lead generation, which turns into opportunity. People think, well, I think Dan wants me to prospect for 40 or 50 hours a week. That's not what I'm challenging you to do. I'm only challenging you to do it a couple hours a day. And I'm not even challenging you to have to do it on the weekend. But if you do want to do it on the weekend, at Florida Luxury, we have an opportunity on Saturdays at our Wesley Chapel office called Power Prospecting Saturday Mornings. And that's where we get together and we make the phone calls as a group. And what happens on those Power Prospecting Saturdays? What do you think happens? We get appointments and we get listings. Yeah, it's a really great thing. So in the afternoon, that's when you should be showing your property. That's when you should be doing your listings, going out and meeting with your customers. This is how I recommend you have your calendar set up. Do you describe yourself as a full-time agent? So who wants to work with a pilot who's interested and not committed? Right? Who wants to work with a coach who's interested and not committed? And guess what? Your customers don't want to work with a realtor who's interested and not committed. So I want you to be committed. How much time does it take to service a customer to closing? Buyers take about 20 hours and sellers take about 12 hours. Write that down. Buyers take about 20 hours and sellers take about 12 hours. So if we're doing one transaction a month, 140 hours of non-customer available time, 2 transactions a month, 120 hours of non-customer available time, and 3 transactions a month are 100 hours of non-customer available time. How much are you paid per hour? The average sale price is $200,000. Who knows what the average sale price is in this market area? Right now, it happens to be $200,000, right? I would challenge you if you're south of county line, you're probably a little over $200,000. Here in this area, which we're broadcasting from Hernando County, you're looking at about $200,000 as the average. So if you look at your commission split, then your average monthly cost of doing business is $800. So I'm going to give you these slides so you can work through this math. But what I really want to say to you is you're probably being paid a very large hourly commission, aren't you, for what you're doing? So prospecting pays off tremendously. Striving for success, you're probably making $45 an hour with 2 transactions a month. So I'm going to share this slide with you. I'm not going to go through it right now because I see some of our folks glazing over in the class. but I want to get to the next part, which is really important. When will you know that you made your goal? The remaining needed money will be zero. So we back into this. We say, what do I need to make? I need to make 200,000 a year. How many transactions do I need to get to that 200,000 a year? And then how do I obtain that income based on an hourly? And how many hours do I need to work to get that income? For each of you, it's different. For some of you, it might be 50,000 a year. Okay. And so as your brokers and as your leaders, we'll never tell you what we think that goal should be, although we can do a financial analysis with you and tell you what your business is capable of, but you've got to back into it knowing what the end result is. If I say I want to go on vacation and I don't put any more thought into it than that, can I really go on vacation?
No.
I have to say I want to go to Disney World in the month of June. I'm going to take 4 people with me. I'm going to stay 2 nights. So I need to have about $1,500 saved up. Don't I have to do it that way? And then how do I get to that? Well, in order to do that, I've got to put aside for the next 3 months, I've got to put aside $400 every month to try to get to that month number that I need, right? Okay. What are the 7 top methods of lead generation? Sphere of influence. Does everybody know somebody? Networking. How many clubs are there in your county? Thousands. They got a club for everything. They got a club for tall people, for short people, for happy people, for sad people. There's clubs for everything. But here's my thing. If you're not at least in 1 or 2 of them, you're missing an opportunity to be with like-minded people. In my case, I belong to a club for good-looking people. And we have those right here in our county. You can also purchase leads online. You can talk to strangers. You can assist another agent. That's a really good one. Who here has partnerships with agents all over the state of Florida? All over the state of Florida. You do? If you don't, you're missing $100,000 worth of annual income. So what if you took one of those prospecting days we talked about early in the morning and you called into markets that you weren't familiar with and you said, hey, I want to let you know that Hernando and Pasco County are very good and still affordable places to live. I know down in Miami where you're at right now, your average sale price is about $600,000. But if you had a customer that wanted to move to the Tampa Bay area, I would be your realtor to choose. And consequently, if I get a customer who wants to move to South Florida, you should be the realtor that I refer them to. Can we make it a point to start referring business to each other? I want to be your point of contact in the Tampa Bay area. Now, what if I did that 10 times a week with 10 agents in other markets? How many referrals would I be getting by the end of the year?
Yeah.
Right? Wouldn't that be really cool? So shouldn't I spend my time working and nurturing those relationships? So when someone says to you, I just don't know how to get business, they're not looking at what's right in front of them. You can work the entire state of Florida. So assist another agent. Help another agent in your office that's new. And what about this? And Greg actually taught me this one. How many agents get out of the business?
A lot.
A lot. Now what happens to all the work they've done for that first year and all those customers they've built? Where do they go? They disperse to who knows where. So what have you said to them? I would like the opportunity to buy your business. So if you keep your license in our referral company, I can still pay you. But then when you get a customer coming in, then please send them to me. Would you be willing to do that? And many agents will say, yeah, I'd love to do that. I don't mind getting a check randomly for a referral. And then those customers that they've worked hard to build rapport with in that first year or two are still being serviced at you by your brokerage. And that's a really positive
How
way
do
to
you
do that.
find inactive agents? There might be a database online, I'm sure that's.
Well, this comes down to things like we had last night. We had a social mixer at our Wesley Chapel location, and there were a lot of agents there. And as painful as it is for me to tell you, they probably won't all be in business 2 years from now. I'd like to believe that 100% of them would be. The reality is, though, life and circumstance pulls people away from the business. But here's what you need to know. If you network with those agents and form a relationship and get rapport, they will trust you to refer business to you. And we had this happen in this office this week, where we had an agent from another market say that they were getting out of the business, moving into referral, and wanted to refer a listing to an agent, and the listing is on the market now in MLS. So this absolutely happens all the time. You can advertise. You can do a billboard, you can send out postcards, you can do a mailer, lots of different ways. You can also prospect for sale by owners and expireds. So these are the different ways that you can promote yourself. Let me get to the next slide. I think I just have to do this. Okay, here we go. All right, what are the 8 fundamentals of a top agent? You got to have goals. Who has an annual sales goal of transactions right now? Good. I don't need to know what it is, but you better know what it is. And when you
It has
get
to be
one,
written.
and I want to tell you, someone else that doesn't do real estate needs to know what it is. Who could that be?
Clients.
Friends,
Accountability.
accountability partner,
Mhm.
your
Not your spouse.
your pastor, your best friend, right? That's maybe not in real estate, your cousin, but somebody who's going to say to you, Mario, hey, how's that 100 transaction goal treating you for 2019? How much progress have you made in the first quarter? And you might say, hey, I've sold 40 homes. Well, you're on your way. Okay. So whatever your number is, that's what you want to do.
So, and I'll just stop you there. That's why I say that your spouse doesn't make a great accountability partner, because when you're not hitting your goals, you don't want it to be that your spouse is nagging you. So you tend not to take the same. It's going back to the kid example.
Right.
We tell our kids to do something and they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Their teacher tells them the exact same thing, and now all of a sudden it's gospel truth. Right?
That's right.
So that's why I have always said my wife and I work phenomenally together. We've been married 15 years, but we are not each other's accountability partner. Because you want to have an accountability partner that can put their foot in your butt and go, dude, what are you doing? Like, you had this goal, get on it, get it done. That doesn't need to be your spouse in most cases, because then, you take that home and, there's no real separation there. So that's why I started with saying your spouse might not be your best accountability partner.
Absolutely. All right. You got to develop good habits. We all have habits. Some are good, some are bad, some are neutral. What's one of the habits that you have before you go to bed at night?
Brush your teeth.
Wash your
Yeah.
face.
Wash your face, brush your teeth, right? Why do we do that? We want clear skin, right? So we wash our face. So you got to develop habits.
So,
So
be a part of that good looking person club.
yeah, it does. It comes naturally for me. Everybody in this room is tremendously good looking as well, and I'm sure watching and listening online. But those habits are important. So if you start prospecting in the morning, after about 6 weeks of doing it, you're just going to get to the office or get to your home office dressed and ready to go for the day, and you're just going to prospect. It's going to be part of what you do. No one's going to have to tell you. Like when you get in your car, you put it in reverse and then you put it in drive. No one has to say, now, Silas, when you get out on the street, make sure you press the gas pedal. It happens automatically. The first time you drove at 15 or 16 years old, you had to really consciously think about driving that car and what was going on around you and all that stuff. Now, you can do it almost second nature and not even have to put much thought into it. That's what we want to do with your habits. Start early. Everyone gives me dirty looks when I tell them this. Dirty looks. All the top producing agents in our industry start their day early. If you're rolling in at 10, you're not going to do 100 transactions a year. You're not even going to do 50. If you're rolling in at 10, you're not going to be able to attend to your clients. Get up, get out, get going. You're getting a competitive advantage over 90% of your competition when you start early, because most of them can't win the battle of the bed, can they? They're still snoozing, they're getting their coffee. While they're doing that, you've already got your day planned in writing, you're making your prospecting calls, and you're ahead of the game, okay? Have a daily scheduler. This can be in your phone, on your iPad, but I would prefer it was written down somewhere so you can look at it a lot. Sometimes when we put it in our phone, it gets lost. But if you're going to put it in your phone, make sure it has reminders to let you know what you need to do. Have quality tools. So use tools that we give to you to do your job. Practice your skills, adapt and change to the needs around you, and have standards. What are some of the standards? So for me, I have a standard that I want all my buyers to get pre-approved within the first 3 showings. Well, you're going to show them a house if they're not pre-approved. In my business model, yes, but no more than 3. So I have standards that I adhere to in my business. You need to have those same standards. Your goal is impossible. It doesn't matter that I know you can do it. If you can believe, you can achieve. Does it matter? It does matter that you believe in yourself. Then your goal will be possible. So which step have you reached today? And you look at the very bottom where he says, I won't do it. And at the very top where he says, yes, I did, or she says, yes, I did, and everything in between. No actions, no success, and no results. When is the perfect time? Today. Start today. And with that, I conclude our class. I will make these slides available to you upon request. We can send them to you through email, through our Google Drive account. and you can look at them for future. Any thoughts? Can any of you see any introspect on how you could make your business a little bit better if you just did some of these activities?
Start early and start prospecting.
Start early and start prospecting. Yep. And it's no accident that when you do that, you're going to have more customers than your competition because you're talking to more people. It's just the law of numbers. So I appreciate you all being here today. And if you have any further questions, I encourage you to get with us and ask questions and set up an appointment. If you need to sit with either Greg or myself, you can always make an appointment with one of the admins and we'll block off time. We like to have time uninterrupted with you guys, not where we're getting a lot of distractions. So if you would please, you can go to your admin, Sarah, you can go to Christine and say, hey, when does Dan have 30 minutes or an hour to sit with me and talk? When is Greg available? And they actually can look at our calendar with even a little bit more authority than we can because they know where we're supposed to be. All right. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.